What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Guys at Magic. We've got new Bloomburrow spoilers for you that we're going to dive into today. But before we do that, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm going to be one of your hosts. I'm Dave. And joining me today, we have Shane. Shane, so what's up?
What's up, nerds?
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cover some of the rares and mythics. If you are interested in all of the cards, make sure you follow us on our Instagram. We post all of the cards spoiled from from all of the sets, not just Bloomburrow, but from everything. And at this point, they're coming out at a cyclic rate. So make sure you're subscribed. So the first card that we're going to talk about is Emberheart Challenger. This is 1 and a red for a creature mouse warrior. It's a 2/2 with haste and prowess. And it also has the Valiant ability. It says whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn.
I mean, kind of good card advantage. Spell or ability you control. So, any kind of like combat tricks or whatnot, you'll have access to another card. Seems pretty good.
Yep. We've seen these kinds of decks before, like Boros heroic style decks. Now, heroic and Valiant are a little bit different. This one actually triggers off of like anything that's going to target it. So if you have like an aura, that'll work.
Yep. Dude, there's 100% going to be a mono red mouse, maybe mono red, but a mouse aggro deck shaping up. Like card we saw yesterday that gave mice double strike or whatever the hell it gave it. Like that's nuts. Plus this card, that's going to be an insane combo.
Yeah, they've got a lot of really scary, like 1 and 2 drop creatures. So I can completely agree with you on that. I think that if you can start to target this too, like what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, like where you're like maybe casting a couple of auras to really pump this thing. Plus, I mean, in and of itself, it has prowess. So
yeah,
this is going to be a flagship creature.
It's going to grow and give you card advantage. Yeah, this is, dude, 2 mana. This is exactly what you wanted. The 2-drop haste, and it gets bigger.
Yep. This is a beater. This is exactly what you want to see in your opening hand every single time.
You want this in a combat trick, and you're like, I won this game.
Yep. Up next, we have another rare. This one is Mistbreath Elder. This is a single green mana for a creature frog warrior. It is a 2/2 and says, at the beginning of your upkeep, return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on Mistbreath Elder. Otherwise, you may return Mistbreath Elder to its owner's hand.
I love all these frogs, dude. Like, all of the theme of these frogs is they're just like leapfrogging everywhere. They're bouncing, they're jumping. I really like the flavor of this.
Oh yeah, I love the mechanic for him as well. What are your thoughts on this card specifically, though?
I think it's pretty good for a 1-drop, dude. I mean, I get that it on turn 1, it's gonna... Actually, no, it's your upkeep, so it'll be your next turn. You actually will have to bounce it right away.
Ooh,
Interesting.
But you don't.
Oh, you don't? Why?
So down at the very bottom there, and I tried to emphasize this whenever I was reading it, it says, otherwise you may return. You don't have to.
Oh, you don't have to do one or the other of those?
No.
Oh. Well then, okay.
I mean, you are going to do one or the other, but if this is the only creature, you don't have to bounce it. So this is literally just a 1 mana 2/2.
Then I think it's power corrupt and fantastic.
Yeah. You
like
are
it.
going to be forced on that first ability, though. So if you do happen to have another creature in play, obviously you're going to be forced to bounce that thing.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of ETBs that you can abuse. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. Plus, this creature is going to be growing. And for it being only 1 mana, this is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. We saw a legendary frog yesterday, right? Or was it 2 days ago now? I can't remember. So many spoilers. But that Simic frog did similar things where it like wanted to bounce your other creatures and stuff. So there's going to be a awesome Simic frog deck, and I'm going to play it.
I definitely am here for it. I'm still wanting to see a little bit more pieces of it before I would say that this is something that I think can crawl its way over to standard. I'm pretty confident in the mice deck actually becoming a deck for standard, but frogs are a little bit more tricky here with the bouncing and sequencing of things. Not saying that it can't, but I think I need to see maybe 1 or 2 more pieces that really convince me.
Silly goose, it's not crawling over there. It's going to hop over there.
All right, up next we have Hired Claw. Keeping on theme with these like ridiculously cheap cost creatures, this is a single red mana. It is a creature lizard mercenary. It's a 1/2 and says whenever you attack with 1 or more lizards, Hired Claw deals 1 damage to target opponent. It also says that you can pay 1 and a red to put a +1/+1 counter on Hired Claw. Activate this ability only if an opponent has lost life this turn, and only once per turn.
Couple of valves there, so that's good, but unfortunately it's not a mouse, or that would just be ridiculous. Still seems good though. Hopefully there's enough other things to help with that, right? Other lizards?
Yeah, if you attack with this, it checks its own box.
That's true. So that is pretty good.
And I
It's just-
mean,
yeah.
yeah, so this, I don't know. I think that this is really good. Plus, like, this doesn't say sorcery speed or anything, so you play this turn 1, you attack with it, it'll get its attack trigger, and then you can pump this thing if your opponents want to maybe potentially block to make combat a little bit more difficult. Or just on turn 2, you know what? Swing in with your 2/3 lizard that you paid 1 mana for.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully you can get it to have haste on turn 1, but I see what you're saying. Pretty good.
I love how you're like, man, this card needs more upside.
Well, you said you're going to play it and swing right away, so I'm like, well, I hope it has haste then.
I mean, just like play it and then I guess turn 2 swing.
Got it.
I need to be more specific there. No haste on this card.
I was going to say, we got to be a little more specific for me because I want it to do all of those things.
Moving on to the next one, we have Valley Floodcaller. This is 2 and a blue for a creature otter wizard. It's a 2/2 with flash, and it says you may cast non-creature spells as though they had flash. It also says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, birds, frogs, otters, and rats you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap them.
That's really good. That's super good. Something that has flash that then lets your other non-creature spells have flash. I like that. Plus, wait a minute, I like all the text on this card. Because I want to play with those relevant card types in this set, and I get to make them bigger and untap them? Like, what? That's sick.
Yeah. Playing around with flash has been really problematic for people in the past just because it's like you don't know. You can attack in, and then they can flash in a creature, and then suddenly combat math goes out the door. And this thing also kind of gives prowess to the whole team, assuming that your team is in those creature types.
That is true. So also it's a quick call out, the words on the screen, that's not me. I promise. That was from the spoiled card itself.
Yeah, we try to find the highest resolution images for these cards. Sometimes that is very difficult to do. This one was actually from one of the Magic the Gathering what was this, like an
Promo images
article
or
or a
something?
picture or something? Like
Yeah.
this wasn't actually even a formal spoiler from today.
But we're talking about it because we like cards.
Yeah, we're talking about it, and plus it's a very good card.
Very good. I told from the beginning I wanted to play an otter deck, so here we go. Otters.
Up next, and this card is much more legible, we have Innkeeper's Talent. It is 1 and a green for an enchantment class. It says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. For a single green mana, you can bring it up to level 2, and it says permanents you control with counters on them have ward 1. And for 3 and a green, you can bump it to level 3. And it says if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many counters of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead.
That's a pretty strong paragraph of text there at the bottom. The middle one's kind of iffy, but you know, whatever.
I don't know. This card is a little bit of work. It's very reminiscent of something like Hardened Scales.
Yep.
Do you think this one kind of gets there?
I think that the top part seems very good in my opinion. Just getting the +1/+1 counter engine going seems really good. But then I do understand that like you're paying 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like the mana will quickly add up there, but I mean obviously I think I want to get to that level 3 pretty quickly because if you're playing this card, I'm guessing you're in a +1/+1 counter deck, and those effects are extremely relevant in those decks. So
yeah, definitely relevant. Very powerful. I'm not entirely convinced on this card, to be completely honest.
No?
I am not super sold on just like its base level 1. I think that's a cute ability. But with this being an enchantment, it means that you can't like pump this to start hurting your opponent. So you do have to have another creature in play at least. The second mode on that, I think I've talked pretty much at length on my thoughts at Ward. Ward 1, really not much of a cost, so I don't think that does much. I don't really know if this card is all that good, in my opinion, until you sink in enough mana to get down to level 3.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, just caveat, that it's level 1 hopefully will trigger the minute it comes out because it's at the beginning of combat. Sometimes we see like at the beginning of your main phase or something, and then in that case you have to wait a whole turn. But beginning of combat, if you have a creature, you could use it right away, so that's cool.
Yeah, that is true. This one is Vren the Relentless. This is 2, a blue, and a black for a total of 4 mana. You get a legendary creature, Rat Rogue. It is a 3/4 with Ward 2, and it says if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. It also says at the beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 black rat creature tokens with. This creature gets +1/+1 for each other rat you control, where X is the number of creatures your opponents control that were exiled this turn.
Okay, that very last piece is like, in my opinion, I guess a saving grace. Because while you were reading that, I was like, this card is going to be nuts. I thought it was going to say, like, that have been exiled with this effect, like, in general. And I was thinking, like, well, when we get to the commander grades, this card seems nuts. But then, I mean, a creature has to die for that to be super scary, in my opinion, right? I was thinking this is going to be huge, but this might not be as huge as I think it's going to be.
Possibly. This does pump up your rats
Big time.
by a lot.
100%, yeah.
So like if there are enough low to the ground rats that are just like generally good, maybe some rats with some ETBs that even have like removal effects stapled onto them, this could be really scary.
Yeah. It's just you get to have the consistency of exiling each turn, right? That's got to happen.
That is
Yeah.
true.
Not exiling, but I guess like dying and then going to exile or whatever. But
Well, the card doesn't actually say they had to die and go to exile. It just says were exiled. Although, in all fairness, you are going to be
I'm just,
playing around with
yeah,
Dimir for this, and
yeah,
Dimir's not super great at exiling out creatures.
that is true. Okay, you're right. So the bottom half just cares about it being exiled, but I'm saying like the static ability on the rat is if a creature would die, exile instead. So
True.
that's what I was trying to get at. But yeah, I mean, it seems really interesting. I think we're gonna probably talk about this a lot in the commander grades, though, for sure.
Yep, we'll definitely talk about these more there. For right now, though, I think it's a cool card.
Yeah,
We'll see if this ends up seeing any play, but this definitely seems more like a commander plant to me.
yeah, it looks really sick. It's like a shredder vibe.
Up next, we have the Infamous Cruelclaw. This is 1, a black, and a red for 3 mana. You get a legendary creature, Weasel Mercenary. It's a 3/3 with Menace. Whenever the Infamous Cruelclaw deals combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost.
Yeah, I definitely read this card wrong the first time, and Hunter in our group chat was like, David's gonna love this card, and in my brain read it as you're gonna be exiling from the top of your opponent's library, and I was like, no, that's bad. What? But then no, it's your library. Like this could get crazy, dude.
It can. This is one of those cards that I feel like does have a lot of potential. You can cheat out, obviously, some very big things. Um, I think I'm gonna have a lot more to say about this one specifically whenever it comes to the commander grades because I don't know if I see this for standard. This is a cute way for me to potentially just like replace one of the things that's already in my hand for just something else and hoping that it's better. At least it doesn't have like the whiff potential of just like exiling a land and then it's just gone.
Yeah, true, very true. But can you imagine
So,
how sick it's gonna be to like play this and then just get like a free Shieldred?
I mean, you absolutely could, but you could also play this and get like a free, I don't know.
Not Shieldred, yeah,
Yeah, just like any other thing,
yeah,
or like worst case scenario, you could even get like a removal spell that maybe doesn't necessarily have a target.
that's true. There is that caveat of you may cast, so not like it's gonna force you to cast anything you don't want, but yeah, I could definitely see this being much more fun in EDH, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Another card that we had spoiled today is Dawn's Truce. This is 1 and a white for an instant. It says gift a card. It also says that you and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. If the gift was promised, permanents you control also gain indestructible until end of turn.
Wow, okay. I know Hunter liked that other art we talked about, but just before I even talk about the card, this is probably my favorite art so far. This is insane. I want to play out of this.
It's a very beautiful artwork. This card, or at least this version of it doesn't mention, but this is, I do believe, one of the story spotlights.
Makes
So
sense.
not listed on the bottom of this, but
Got it. As a card, though, this seems very strong.
it is heroic intervention in white.
It is. Yeah. And if you want, you can gift a card and save everything. I don't know.
It is interesting just because I know that this card doesn't have like quite as much of a power level to it. You do obviously have to be able to gift a card if you want to give your things indestructible, but oftentimes just giving your stuff hexproof will probably be enough.
I agree. I love the flexibility of this card, and I love the art of this card. I think I just love this card. I'm a big fan of this card.
Yeah, I do like this one a lot. I'm curious to see how gift works out as mechanic, specifically whenever it comes to like gift a card, because it is a very steep price to pay.
Yeah.
But the power level of this is obviously here.
We always talk about we don't want to give our opponent cards, but in this scenario, I think I might gift a card to just save my entire board from a board wipe. That seems
There you
pretty
go.
good. Yeah.
Yep. Up next, we have Byway Barterer. This is 2 and a red for a total of 3 mana. You get a creature, Raccoon Rogue. It is a 3/3 with Menace, and it says whenever you expend 4, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 2 cards. So expend 4, just as a little bit of a reminder, you do have to spend that mana to cast spells. So sadly, abilities won't work. Originally, whenever I read this card, I was pretty high on it. I was thinking, okay, cool, that would be awesome if I have like a man land that I can sink the mana into. But that doesn't work. And there is no guarantee that like I'm gonna be able to draw 2 cards and then be able to expend again. So I don't actually think this card is going to be chaining very much for me.
It's very interesting. There might be a world in which, you're a mono red player that just wants to spend 4 mana and discard your hand and load up again, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to see how expend plays out.
Yeah, this is a cool piece if you're playing a like a reanimator deck, where you're
That's true.
looking to get rid of your hand.
Yeah. It's a great way to get rid of your hand, yeah.
Yeah, this could also be very fun with Flubs the Fool, which by the way we do have a deck tech coming up on. Sadly, this card did not make that list because while this card did not exist whenever we made the deck tech, we kind of jumped on that one a little bit early. But this actually could potentially go well with there, at least while you still have a hand.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Moving on to the final card we're going to talk about today. This is Season of the Burrow. This is 3 and 2 white for a total of 5. You get a sorcery and it says choose up to 5 of the pause worth of modes. You may choose the same mode more than once. The first mode here for a single paw says create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. The second one for 2 paws says exile target non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. And the third and final mode here for 3 paws says return target permanent card with mana value of 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it.
Damn. Okay. 5 mana. So you could It's interesting. This series of cards, the seasons, right? With these paws, very interesting. There's a lot of like, do you do 2 paws and then rest of 1? Like, where you can mix and match these cards feels very flexible, I will say.
It is incredibly flexible. However, I do feel like this one, I don't know how much I like this.
Yeah.
It is 5 mana for a sorcery, which is a lot of mana for you to sink into this. And it's probably going to take up a pretty considerable portion of your turn, if not just take up your entire turn.
See, but I don't think I'm upset with that, because if you think about spending 5 mana, let's just say like you spend this for just on turn 5. I'm going to return something that died 3 or less, so that's 1 body. And then I spend the rest of the 2 to make 2 1/1s, so it's like kind of a board state in a card, maybe? So it's kind of like I played this card, now I have a board state again. That kind of seems good.
I mean, yeah, I look at it like modal cards. I feel like are always better than what you probably initially evaluate them as. They're more than the sum of their parts.
Yeah.
I don't really care much for that first mode. The second mode is cool, but I don't know if I ever want to hit that more than once, just because my opponent is going to be drawing cards. The third mode is my favorite, and I do think that one is actually genuinely powerful. However, it's still somewhat restrictive in terms of like what you can hit. The indestructible counter on it is pretty cool, though. I mean, there are some
Yeah.
shenanigans you can do there. It's not actually just creature.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's what kind of pushes it over the edge for me. Otherwise,
Mhm.
5 mana for that ability seems a bit steep, but the indestructible counter on it kind of pushes it up there.
Yep. All right, well, that is going to do it for today's spoilers. Stick with us for tomorrow. We have more Bloomburrow coming out, and then more spoilers past that point because Magic the Gathering is literally just printing cards on a daily basis now. If you haven't done so already, please make sure that you like and subscribe here on YouTube and follow us also on our other social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and also on TikTok. Follow us everywhere at Guys at Magic. And also, if you do want to show us a little bit more love, right here on the screen, these are our Patreon subscribers. I don't know. I would say that I don't have favorites, but that's a lie. These people here are all my favorites. And if you want to be one of my favorites too, you can join them as well. Actually, that's not true. Just for watching this video, we love all of you. Until next time, though, this has been Guys at Magic. Later.
Bye-bye.